The sky had turned gray, darker than any storm the earth had seen. Animals grew restless. Rivers overflowed. The wind whispered of something ancient, something final. And at the heart of it all stood one man, Noah, staring up at the heavens, listening for the voice that had warned him. A voice not everyone believed in. A voice that had spoken of water, destruction, and salvation. This is not just a story about rain. This is a story about obedience, faith, and the survival of life itself. Long ago, when the world was still young and the earth fertile with life, people had multiplied and filled the lands. Cities rose, families grew, and generations passed, but so did goodness. The hearts of men had changed. Greed replaced gratitude. Violence echoed louder than kindness. Humanity had forgotten the one who had breathed life into their bones. The world, once beautiful and pure, was now sick with wickedness. But one man was different. His name was Noah. He lived in a quiet valley, away from the corruption of the cities. He was not perfect, but he was faithful. He walked with God, not just in prayer, but in action. While others laughed at right and wrong, Noah held on to what was true. One night, as the stars blinked over a silent earth, Noah heard something that changed everything. It was not a sound of thunder or the rumble of the earth, it was a voice. Clear, powerful, and eternal. The voice of God. Noah, it said. The world has filled itself with evil. Violence and cruelty overflow. I will wipe it clean. A great flood is coming, one that will cover the earth and end all living things. But I have chosen you. You will build an ark, a vessel of salvation. You, your family, and 2 of every kind of animal will live. The world will begin again through you. Noah fell to his knees. A flood. The end of the world. It was unthinkable. But he did not question. He believed. The next morning, Noah rose before the sun. His hands, once used for tending fields and herding goats, began shaping wood. The instructions were clear: the ark would be massive, 300 cubits long, nearly 450 feet, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. It would have 3 decks, a single door, and a window near the top. A fortress on water. As the days passed, people from nearby towns came to see the strange sight. "Have you lost your mind, old man?" they jeered. "Do you think the sky will drown us?" laughed another. But Noah kept building. His sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, worked beside him, hauling timber and hammering beams. His wife and daughters-in-law gathered food, stitched nets, and stored supplies. Years passed. And still, the ark grew. Some began to mock less and just stare. Something about the size of the ark, its haunting silence, and the unwavering resolve of Noah's family began to unsettle them. But not enough to change. Then, one morning, something strange happened. From over the hills came the sound of hooves. The flutter of wings. The low growl of beasts. Animals, in pairs, began arriving at the ark. Lions walked beside lambs. Eagles perched beside doves. Elephants trudged silently, not crushing a single flower. The earth itself seemed to pause. Noah opened the great door. And without a single whip or shout, the animals walked in, 2 by 2, male and female. The air buzzed with tension. Something was coming. The people watched, wide-eyed. But even then, their hearts remained hard. The last animals entered. Noah looked up to the sky, still dry, still blue. He waited. Then, thunder rolled. A single drop fell. Then another. The voice came again. "Noah. Enter the ark. The time has come." Noah and his family stepped inside. The door, too heavy for human hands, closed behind them with a groan, as if the earth itself had exhaled for the last time. The first storm had begun. The door shut with a final, thunderous thud, not by Noah's hands, but by something unseen. Outside, the sky cracked. A flash of white split the heavens, and the first true roar of the storm began. Rain fell. Not the gentle kind that waters crops. This rain was thick and heavy, like the sky was emptying everything it had ever held. Within minutes, the ground turned to rivers. Within hours, those rivers became oceans. Inside the ark, Noah and his family sat in silence. They had done everything they could. The animals rested in their stalls, calm in a way that defied nature. A lion blinked slowly beside a sleeping deer. Snakes curled peacefully near wild boars. Something divine had stilled them. Outside, the world changed. The people who had once laughed were now screaming. They banged on the sides of the ark, their fists lost in the roaring storm. "Noah! Let us in," they cried. But it was too late. The water rose fast. First the streams overflowed, then the rivers surged over banks, then whole villages were swallowed. Trees snapped. Houses crumbled. The hills became islands. Then nothing at all. From the ark, Noah watched through the small window at the top. He could barely see through the torrent, but what he saw would never leave him. The world, everything he had known, was vanishing. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rain did not stop. The ark groaned and swayed, rising higher with the flood. It floated over what had once been mountains. There was no land, no sun, only endless gray and the sound of water striking wood. Inside, the ark became a world of its own. Noah and his family moved among the animals, feeding them, cleaning their stalls, comforting the young and weak. They took turns sleeping, praying, and watching. They could not see the stars, but they held on to hope, that the same voice who had told Noah to build the ark was still watching over them. Then, one morning, the rain stopped. It ended as suddenly as it had begun. The skies cleared. Sunlight streamed through the clouds. But there was no land, no trees, no sound of birds. Only water. The ark drifted in silence, like a lone ship in an endless sea. Days turned into weeks. The family watched the sky, scanned the horizon, and waited. But the world remained drowned. Then, slowly, the waters began to sink. It wasn't obvious at first, just a flicker of hope. A distant mountain peak, barely visible. Then another. After months of floating, the ark came to rest on something solid. Mount Ararat. High above the drowned earth, the ark settled, creaking as it leaned against the mountain. It didn't tip, didn't crash, it simply stopped. Noah stepped out onto the deck and breathed in the cold mountain air. It was the first time he had felt stillness in over half a year. But they could not leave yet. The world was not ready. Water still covered the valleys, and the soil was still wet and lifeless. Noah needed a sign. He opened the small window and released a raven. It soared into the sky, circling wide over the waters. But it never returned. Then, he released a dove. The bird flapped into the sky, soft and white against the gray. But by nightfall, it returned, wings tired, feet empty. There was nowhere to land. 7 days later, Noah tried again. The dove returned, this time with something in its beak. An olive leaf. Noah held it in trembling hands. Life had returned. Somewhere, a tree had survived. Somewhere, the earth was beginning to breathe again. 7 more days passed. He sent the dove one last time. It did not return. That was the sign. The world was ready. Noah waited for the voice. And it came. Come out of the ark, Noah. You, your family, and every living creature with you. Fill the earth again. The door, which had sealed them in, now opened wide. The animals rushed into the light. Birds took to the air. Beasts leapt across the stones. Insects, reptiles, creatures great and small, they all returned to a waiting world. Noah stood on the mountain and wept. Not because of fear, but because of awe. The world had been washed clean. Not out of cruelty, but out of mercy. A second chance had been given. He built an altar with the stones of the mountain and made a sacrifice, a gift of gratitude. The smoke rose into the sky. God spoke again, not with thunder, but with promise. Never again will I curse the earth because of mankind. Never again will I destroy all living things with a flood. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, they will never cease. And then, in the sky, something new appeared. A bow of colors, stretching from horizon to horizon. A rainbow. It was not just a natural wonder, it was a covenant. A divine signature across the sky. A sign for Noah, his family, and every generation to come. The flood was over. But the story was not. Humanity had been given a second chance. And now, the question lingered in the quiet wind, what would we do with it? The ground was soft beneath Noah's feet, damp but firm. Every step on the fresh earth felt like a beginning. All around him, life stirred. The animals, once silent and still within the ark, now moved with purpose. Eagles soared. Deer bounded through brush. Elephants rumbled their low calls across the valleys below Mount Ararat. The world, emptied and reborn, was waking up. But while the animals knew instinctively what to do, Noah and his family stood still, staring at the land before them. It was a strange, bittersweet silence. Behind them lay the ark, weather-worn, creaking in the breeze. Before them stretched a future written on blank soil. They were the only people on earth. Noah turned toward his family, his wife, his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives. 8 souls. Alone. The weight of creation sat on their shoulders. That night, they lit a fire and sat around it, not speaking much. Each person watched the flames flicker, thinking of what had been lost, and what might come next. Noah, eyes heavy with memory and hope, lifted his voice into the night. We were spared, not just to live, but to begin again. He knew this second chance came with responsibility. The next day, they began to rebuild. Shelters were raised. Seeds planted. Stones gathered. The land was wild again, and every task required effort. But they had learned something the world before the flood had forgotten, how to listen. How to obey. How to respect the one who gave life. And God, who had not abandoned them, spoke once more. To you and your sons, I give every living thing. Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth. Rule over the birds, the animals, and every creature that moves. Just as I gave you plants for food, now I give you all things. But remember this, life is sacred. Do not shed blood without cause. Then God made a covenant, not just with Noah, but with all living things. He promised never again to destroy the earth with a flood. And he set a sign of that promise in the sky. The rainbow. Each time it appeared, it would speak without words, you are remembered. You are safe. The family flourished. Seasons passed. Crops grew. Children were born. But even in a clean world, the shadow of human nature remained. One day, Noah planted a vineyard. He harvested grapes, made wine, and drank deeply. Too deeply. For the first time since stepping off the ark, Noah became careless. He lay in his tent, drunk and exposed. His son Ham came upon him in this state and, instead of honoring his father, ran to tell his brothers with mockery in his voice. But Shem and Japheth, understanding dignity, took a garment, walked backward into the tent, and covered their father, refusing even to look upon his shame. When Noah awoke and learned what had happened, he was heartbroken. The flood had washed away wickedness, but not weakness. It still lived in men's hearts. He called his sons together. To Shem and Japheth, he gave blessings. Their line would flourish. But to Ham's son, Canaan, he pronounced a curse, not of cruelty, but of consequence. A warning that choices still mattered, even in a new world. As generations passed, the sons of Noah spread across the earth. Shem's descendants settled in the east and became the ancestors of many nations. Ham's descendants spread southward into Africa and parts of Asia. Japheth's line moved north and west, into Europe and beyond. They spoke different languages, built different cities, and began to forget the flood, and the God who had saved them. But not all forgot. Some carried the stories, of the great ark, the endless rain, the mountain where hope returned. They told their children, and their children's children, who would one day tell them again by firelight. Some would believe. Others would call it myth. But the rainbow still came after storms. It whispered of a promise older than memory. It spoke to the human heart, reminding it of second chances. And of one man who listened. While the rest of the world laughed. A man who built something no one had seen before, because he trusted a voice no one else heard. A man who walked into the unknown with nothing but faith, a hammer, and a plan. Noah. Not a hero by strength. But by obedience. Today, the oceans rise and fall. Storms rage and calm. Mountains stand, silent witnesses. Somewhere, deep in the ranges of Ararat, old wood may still rest, buried by time, swallowed by snow. The ark is gone, but its story remains. Because it was never just about a flood. It was about choosing right when everyone else chooses wrong. It was about a door closing, and a new one opening. And it asks us, every time the clouds gather and the light breaks through. If the world was starting over, what kind of person would you choose to be?